Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my FXmovies.20 channel? Thank you so much. My suburban life appeared idyllic to outsiders, characterized by a large residence, an expansive backyard, a shimmering pool basking in sunlight, a diligent husband, and a 20-year-old son on the verge of college graduation. However, behind closed doors, reality diverged from this facade. My husband, Mike, devoted the majority of his time to work, and when present at home, he remained fixated on his phone. The intimacy we once shared had dissipated over the years, rendering me invisible within my own marriage. It was a Saturday afternoon in early summer when I first observed Marcus. He was my son Eric's closest companion, a polite and self-assured young man who had been coming over to hang out for months. I never really paid him much attention before, but that day something shifted. Eric had invited Marcus to swim in our backyard pool. From the kitchen, I caught a glimpse of them through the sliding glass door. Marcus stood on the pool's edge, his body glistening with water under the midday sun. His athletic frame was lean yet muscular, his dark skin flawless and smooth. He dove effortlessly into the water, resurfacing with a grin that showcased perfect white teeth. For a moment, I couldn't look away. It wasn't just his looks that caught my attention. It was his confidence, the way he carried himself, so different from my husband's distant and tired demeanor. I felt a strange stirring inside me, one that I hadn't felt in years. I brushed off the feeling and turned my focus back to the dishes, but my mind kept wandering back to him. Over the next few weeks, Marcus began spending more time at our house. He and Eric worked out together in our garage, played video games late into the night, and sometimes just lounged by the pool. Each time Marcus was around, I found myself hyper-aware of his presence. One afternoon, while Eric ran to the store, Marcus came inside for a drink. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner. "Mrs. Blake, do you mind if I grab some water?" Marcus's deep voice startled me, causing me to lose my train of thought. "Marcus," I said, attempting to maintain a casual tone, "please call me Amanda." He displayed his captivating smile once more. "Thank you, Amanda," he said as he extended his hand for a glass. Our fingers inadvertently grazed. It was a brief, transitory instant, yet it elicited a surge within me. I swiftly retracted my hand, hoping he had not caught the hitch in my breath. "Apologies for that," he remarked with a laugh. "It's fine," I murmured, my cheeks flushing. After he left the kitchen, I leaned against the counter, trying to calm the racing thoughts in my head. What was happening to me? I was a married woman in her 40s, yet here I was blushing like a teenager over a boy half my age. Later that evening, I sat by the pool after everyone had gone to bed. The water shimmered under the moonlight, its gentle ripples mirroring the unrest in my heart. I couldn't deny it anymore. There was something about Marcus that drew me in, something I couldn't. I told myself it was just a harmless crush, something that would fade with time. But deep down I knew better. The way he looked at me earlier that day, it wasn't just in my head. There was something unspoken between us, a spark that couldn't be ignored. As the night wore on, I resolved to push these feelings aside. I was a wife, a mother, and I had a family to protect. But even as I made that promise to myself, I couldn't help but wonder, what if? Stay tuned to find out how one moment of weakness can unravel a life. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more gripping, dramatic stories that dive into the deepest corners of the human heart. I tried to ignore the feelings, to bury them under the routine of my daily life, but Marcus made it impossible. His presence filled every corner of my home, his laughter echoing through the walls, his scent lingering in the air long after he'd left a room. It was a week after that night by the pool when things took a turn. Eric and Marcus engaged in a game of basketball in our driveway, their shirts discarded in the summer heat. I had opened the living room window to allow fresh air in, and their jovial banter permeated the space. I attempted to concentrate on folding laundry, yet my gaze repeatedly wandered to Marcus. Upon concluding their game, Eric dashed inside to retrieve an item from his room, leaving Marcus on the porch with a bottle of water. He noticed my observation through the window and smiled. It was not merely a cordial smile. It was as if he could perceive my innermost thoughts. My heart raced, and I swiftly averted my gaze, feigning preoccupation with the laundry. "Pleasant day, isn't it?" Marcus's voice shocked me. He stood just outside the window, casually resting against the frame. Yes, it is, I said, attempting to maintain a steady voice. You should come outside more, Mrs. Blake. You could use some sun, he remarked, his tone light yet infused with an indefinable quality. I expressed my contentment with my current situation, offering a forced smile in response to the gratitude before departing. His words resonated. It was not merely the implication but the manner in which he articulated it, as if he were provoking me. Later that evening, I found myself solitary in the kitchen, tidying up post-dinner. Marcus entered, his footsteps muted against the tile. Need any assistance? He inquired, his voice deep and velvety. No, I understand, I responded, averting his stare. Still he remained, leaning against the counter and observing me. You exert yourself excessively, are you aware of that? I halted. The dish in my hand was neglected. No one had uttered such words to me in years. It's merely my habit, I remarked with a slight shrug. Perhaps it is advisable for someone to do so, he advised. To prioritize your own well-being for once. Our gazes locked, causing my breath to catch once again. An unspoken tension engulfed us. I recognized the necessity to disengage and articulate a conclusion, yet I remained immobilized and snared in his gaze like a moth drawn to a flame. Before I could react, Eric entered the room, interrupting the moment. Marcus regained his composure, his effortless smile re-emerging. Thank you for dinner, Mrs. Blake, he remarked before departing with Eric. His words lingered in the atmosphere more heavily than I was willing to acknowledge. The subsequent days were a haze of covert glances and ephemeral touches. Once in the kitchen, our hands brushed again, and this time neither of us withdrew immediately. On another occasion, while passing him in the hallway, his arm brushed against mine, eliciting a shiver down my spine. I recognized the peril I was treading. A precarious line, and a single misstep could obliterate everything. Yet the more I endeavored to resist, the more I felt irresistibly attracted to him. One afternoon, while Eric was out running errands with Marcus, I remained seated on the patio sipping iced tea when he approached and inquired, "May I sit?" I replied, "Of course." "Not," he replied, attempting to maintain a casual demeanor. As we sat in silence, the only sounds being the chirping of birds and the distant hum of traffic, he turned to me, stating that I seemed different lately. Is everything satisfactory? I hesitated, uncertain how to react given the multitude of thoughts occupying my head, and ultimately stated that I would assist in any way possible. His voice diminished. However, the connotation was unequivocal. I gazed at him intently, and in that instant I sensed a transformation. It transcended mere desire and evolved into a profound need. At times, one may require a resurgence of vitality. A single decision has the potential to alter everything. Amanda succumbs to her wants, or will she retreat from the precipice? And subscribe to follow this captivating narrative. The moment of surrender steeped in love and betrayal was unavoidable. Despite my weeks of self-deception, it was a sultry Friday evening, and Mike and Eric had attended a baseball game in the city. The house was conspicuously silent. The silence permitted introspection to venture into perilous realms. Marcus remained that evening, asserting his disinterest in baseball. I did not question it. A part of me felt relief while another part was filled with terror. Seated on the couch with a book, I found myself unable to concentrate on any page. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his tall frame silhouetted against the dim hallway. "Do you mind if I join you?" he asked, holding up a glass of water. "Of course," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He sat beside me, closer than he had ever been before, and the tension we had been harboring for weeks filled the air between us. "You seem nervous," he said after a moment, his voice soft. "I'm fine," I lied, though my hand trembled slightly as I turned the page of my book. He reached out and gently took the book from my hands, placing it on the coffee table. "Amanda, you don't have to pretend." Hearing him say my name like that, without the formalities, without the pretense, sent a shiver through me. I turned to face him, my resolve crumbling under the weight of his gaze. I was unable to commence, however, the words were lodged in my throat. "You can," he stated, his voice remaining steady and sure. "I know you feel it too." And at that moment, I stopped thinking. I stopped worrying about the potential consequences. I leaned in, and he met me halfway. When our lips met, a surge of suppressed desire consumed both of us. His hands were strong yet gentle as they cupped my face, pulling me closer. I melted into him, forgetting everything except the way he made me feel. The hours that followed were a blur of passion and guilt. We moved from the couch to the bedroom, where I had spent so many lonely nights wondering if my husband even noticed me anymore. Now someone did. But as the night wore on, reality began to creep back in, and I lay beside Marcus, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. What had I done? This can't happen again, I said quietly, though I didn't believe the words even as I spoke them. I don't think you mean that, Marcus replied, his voice calm and confident. I turned to face him, searching for some hint of doubt or hesitation in his expression. There was none. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. I deserve to feel this way, Amanda. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. His words were a balm to my wounded heart, but they couldn't erase the guilt that had already taken root. Over the next few weeks, our secret affair continued. We stole moments whenever we could when Eric was out, when Mike was working late. The thrill of sneaking around only heightened the intensity, but it also made me paranoid. One afternoon, as we sat together on the patio, Marcus reached for my hand. I pulled away quickly, glancing nervously toward the house. Relax, he said with a smirk. No one's home. That's not the point, I whispered, my eyes darting to the windows. But it wasn't just the fear of being caught that gnawed at me. Every time we were together, I felt myself slipping further away from the person I used to be. The first crack in our secret came one evening when Mike found Marcus's hoodie draped over the back of a dining room chair. Did Marcus leave this here? He asked casually. Yes, I said quickly, my heart pounding. He must have forgotten it. After dinner, Mike raised an eyebrow but didn't press further. Still, the encounter left me shaking. How long before he started asking more questions? The answer came sooner than I expected. It was a warm Sunday afternoon and the house was full of the usual noise. I had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed and the weight of my secret was beginning to crush me. Every time I looked at Mike, a twist in my stomach felt like a knife. Every time I saw Eric, I felt like the worst mother in the world. Marcus caught my eye through the kitchen window, giving me a small, knowing smile. I pounded and swiftly averted my gaze. I had to end this. I had to stop before it all crashed down, but fate had other plans. That evening, my dad stepped outside to take a phone call and Eric was upstairs showering after their swim. Marcus and I were alone, the tension between us thick enough to cut with a knife. I can't do this anymore, I whispered, my voice trembling. He stepped closer, his hand brushing against mine. You don't mean that. I do, I insisted, though my resolve wavered as he looked at me. This is wrong, Marcus. It has to stop. Before he could respond, the back door opened and Mike walked in. For a moment, I thought we'd managed to compose ourselves, but then his eyes narrowed, flicking between Marcus and me. What's going on here? He asked, his tone sharp. Nothing, I said quickly, my voice too high-pitched to be convincing. Mike's gaze lingered on me, then shifted to Marcus. Eric's friend, or you better explain yourself, kid. Marcus hesitated, but before he could speak, Eric appeared in the doorway, his hair still damp from the shower. What's going on? He asked, looking between us. The silence stretched heavy, and then, to my horror, Mike turned to Eric. How well do you really know your friend? Son, Dad, what are you talking about? Eric asked, frowning. Mike didn't answer. Instead, he looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of suspicion and betrayal. Amanda, is there something you want to tell me? I tried to speak, but nothing came out. The truth was slowly surfacing, but I couldn't force myself to admit that Marcus was the one who finally broke the silence. Mr. Blake, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Don't lie to me. Mike roared, slamming his hand down on the counter. The room erupted into chaos. Eric demanded answers, Marcus tried to explain, and Mike turned his fury on me. By the time everything calmed down, the truth had been revealed. Eric stormed out of the house, his face a mask of disbelief and anger. Marcus left shortly after, his usual confidence replaced by a look of shame. Mike and I were left alone in the kitchen, the silence between us deafening. How long? He asked finally, his voice hollow. I was unable to meet his gaze. A few weeks, I admitted, my voice barely audible. He chuckled cynically, raking a hand through his hair. A few weeks with our son's best friend? God, Amanda, what were you thinking? I wasn't. I mentioned, tears streaming down my cheeks. I felt isolated. Mike, you have been so aloof, and I do not know. Do not attribute this to me, he retorted. You made this decision, not I. He then exited in a fury, leaving me isolated with my shame and remorse. The aftermath was a nightmare. Eric declined to communicate with me and Mike upon relocating to the guest room. The house resembled a battleground, with every encounter fraught with animosity and pain. Marcus ceased his visits, and I could not fault him. His camaraderie with Eric had dissolved, and any prospect of mending my family appeared unattainable. I dedicated my days to reconstructing my life, yet the harm was irrevocable. Trust once shattered is exceedingly difficult to restore. Months later, I continued to endure the repercussions of my actions. Mike and I are undergoing therapy, although the viability of our marriage remains uncertain. Eric has begun to forgive me, but our relationship will never revert to its former state. As for Marcus, he has progressed beyond our past. I observed him once in a coffee shop. We shared a fleeting, uncomfortable glance before he turned and departed. I have acquired a profound understanding. A fleeting lapse in judgment can obliterate a lifetime of trust. Life is replete with decisions, some of which can alter everything instantly. For more compelling emotional narratives like this, please like and subscribe. Another story is always poised to be unveiled.